All right, aloha. You are listening to KKCR Hanalei, KAQA Kilauea, 90.9 on the FM dial for Hanalei, 91.9 island-wide, and live streaming at www.kkcr.org. So we have a very important topic coming in, and that is something that's come almost under the radar. It's Act 55, which is called the Public Land Development Corporation. And in the studio here with me, I have Teddy Blake. Teddy, you want to say aloha?
Aloha. Aloha, mai kakou.
So, Teddy, you know quite a bit about this. We've been looking at it together. You want to tell the listener what's going on?
You know, as you mentioned, Felicia, this is really under the radar because it takes so much effort for one to follow everything that goes on in our legislature, and this one kind of just came in out of the blue, and it has such magnitude and such. You know, I mean, it's going to be a big thing to us, but I can just tell you what I've learned about it.
Okay, so let's let the listener know the very topic. It's our public land, right? You want to tell them how much acreage and?
It's the Public Land Development Corporation. Probably covers close to 2 million acres statewide. All these lands are under the control, I believe, of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and it's Act 55, which establishes this Public Land for Development Corporation, or PLDC, as a state development corporation attached to the Department of Land and Natural Resources to develop public lands placed under PLDC jurisdiction, including but not limited to existing open shoreline areas, conservation lands, agricultural lands, small boat harbors for commercial purposes to generate revenue for the state.
So basically, that's like what we almost think of as our wild land, right? That would be Kokee, that would be Kalalau, that would be all kinds of incredible amounts of land that is state land.
This is covers a variety of different types of land, and I think this would be somebody's dream to get control of something like this.
2 million acres.
2 million acres.
And then, so if I understand correctly, it means this little group of people from the DLNR get to make decisions about how this is used and ways to make money with it, right? They can put a hotel there, they can put a marina there, they can do all that stuff, and they don't have to go through the normal process of zoning and so forth.
Off the top of what I know about it, that's exactly what it is, and there may be another side to the story, and with all in the defense of the legislature, you know, the other side of the story should be heard, but what's been alarming is that this has such magnitude, and it was under the radar, like you say. It's, you know, and now to understand what this encompasses, really, I mean, you know, it put me down in a chair to sit down and take a much closer look at this. And I called a couple of legislatures to find out, you know, what's behind this, or what's the intent. And it's a bit scary. It's a bit scary to me because we're giving all this. We're empowering the Department of Land and Natural Resources to do all of this, and I've got a big bone to pick with the State Historic Preservation Division, which belongs to the DLNR, for their lack of enforcement and preserving our most treasured stuff, which is our wahipana.
Right. So we're going to be hearing. We're going to have a number of guests on the show today. Pretty soon, I'm going to put a little bit of our top of the hour information, but among our guests that are calling in, we're going to be hearing from Bronson Kalipi from Molokai, who actually is the one who alerted me to this issue. Not for him, I wouldn't have been probably really noticing it very hard.
Yeah, he's on hold right now. So
okay, he'll be on in a minute. And Luka, who is also there, he's calling in from Oahu. So we're really, really thankful to our Outer Island friends for sharing this knowledge. And We will then be hearing from Ron Kouchi. So he'll be telling, because I understand from Ron that he voted yes for this. In fact, all of our state legislators voted yes for this from Kauai. So he can give us some of the reasons why he made that choice. Walter Ritte, who is on the ballot for Oahu, and he has been a longtime activist in Hawaii for a lot of things, particularly champion the rights of the native Hawaiian people, but also the plants, the indigenous elements. The plants are our indigenous elements too. And there'll be a few other people, so this is going to be pretty loaded up with people who have a lot of knowledge. And I'm going to hear from our underwriters, and then we're going to pull Luka and Bronson on the air.
The views and opinions expressed during this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent those of KKCR, its board of directors, staff, volunteers, or underwriters.
So, mahalo for supporting Kauai Community Radio. Teddy, you wanted to just bring up a little bit about the document itself first, and then we're going to hear from our off-island friends.
This is what the PLDC, the Planning Public Land Development Corporation, is authorized to do. Develop and implement. I'm reading this.
Okay, right off the document, yes.
Okay, develop and implement public lands projects and facilities to create revenue-generating centers, or where, through delayed analysis, opportunities exist to exploit potential local, national, and international markets. Number 2, exemption from lawful development requirements. PLDC projects shall be exempt from all statutes, ordinances, charter provisions, and rules of any government agency relating to land use, zoning, and construction standards for subdivisions, development, and improvement of land. The construction improvements and the sale of homes therein, and special improvement districts, assessments, or requirements, PLDC powers. Acquire or contract to acquire all privately owned real property or any interest therein and improvements thereon determined by the PLDC to be necessary to appropriate for its purposes, including real property, in excess of that needed for such use, where other justifiable cause necessitates acquisition for the contemplated improvements.
So that's really powerful. That's like such an enormous, I hate to even use the word asset for our INA, but it's an enormous opportunity, gift, grab piece for whoever is able to be handling that. So I'm going to bring up our friends from the other islands. Oops. Oh, no. Aloha, you're on the air.
I don't think they're there. Let's see if we can have them call back.
Okay. So, all right. So we're gonna
give that a minute, but to continue the talk then while we're waiting for them.
I just wanted to say that I've got tremendous faith in our legislators here, all 4 of them: D. Murakawa, Derek Kawakami, Jimmy Tokioka, and especially Senator Kouchi. And I'm sure there's something that we don't know about that they can enlighten us on, because I know as a group the 4 of them would never go for something that looks this scary. Well, reads this scary.
It sure does look scary. And there is a public hearing tomorrow on Oahu, and aloha to Oahu listeners. Tomorrow, do you have the location? It's at 6:00 at the Department of Land and Natural Resources building. And that address is what says the Kalani Moku building, Land Board Conference Room 132. It's 1151 Punch Bowl Street. And then here on Kauai, on Friday from 6 to 8 o'clock, it's at Wilcox.
Wilcox School?
Cafeteria, at Wilcox School. So we're going to see if we've got our people back on the line. We're trying to get them back up because they have a lot to say. And there's a really, really compelling film clip from the news on the Big Island that is 15 minutes long, and it shows just one after another of people really protesting this event Very, very powerful testimony coming forward.
Very, very strong testimony, and there's always two sides to the coin, and that's what I'm happy that you're having this today, because we can hear the story from the other side of the coin. But hearing and watching this video was quite compelling, and as we stated earlier, scary.
Very scary. And, there's some interesting pieces. Since I've been looking at this, I've seen so much on the Internet. I am really surprised that this didn't come up earlier, but there is provisions for where they can really make a lot of requirements from their adjacent neighbors.
Well, it almost seems like legislative fiat, where anyone involved with the PLDC can do things that a normal citizen or developer or whatever you are doing a development on another piece of land cannot do. It circumvents a lot of the, as I read it circumvents a lot of the local zoning and other checkpoints that are put in place just to answer these type of questions. And I look at it like another super ferry fiasco coming, where by a stroke of the pen you don't have to do an EIS, and there's so many people that were so concerned about this on Kauai, and with issues that weren't addressed on the EIS, and to take it back down to ground level, it's like a few projects in Koloa where you had EIS and EAs done, and they just glossed over some of the most important points, and these were just pushed on the wayside because the focus was on development.
Yeah, and then what I've seen here too, I have a letter from the Burial Council, and that these exemptions also include iwi kupuna and burial laws. Last time you were on the show, we were talking about that issue. So this is the Burial Council, none of that would even come forward in the use now. That's
kind of sacrilegious as far as I'm concerned, and probably every ethnic group feels the same way. You can go and disturb my ancestors' iwi, yet if I go to a public graveyard and disturb yours, I go to jail.
Yeah, well, that's a very big and heavy issue that's here. I was watching the videos, and I've seen this here written up in this paperwork, that they can, if they want to make improvements, it requires putting pipelines in for either water or electric or sewage improvements on the neighbor's adjacent land. The owner of that land is welcome to get their own contractor, put it in. If not, the state will do it anyway. The DLNR will do it anyway, and then just charge back the owners of the land and give them 30 days to pay up. And if not, then they get an easement against their property.
That one is something that I'm really looking into, because it certainly doesn't sound like it'll stand up in court. But if it's the language that's in this Act 55, I mean somebody wasn't putting a lot of thought into this.
Or maybe putting a whole lot of thought,
too
much thought, and then not really giving enough time for the community to speak forward. To me, to have a land grab this big and not have a public conversation is really pretty staggering. I keep reflecting back on the Agricultural Development Corporation that happened on the west side here, and one of those goals was sustainability in our agriculture, but there wasn't anyone, a small farmer, that was able to end up with that land. It was given off to these big biotech companies, and it seems like they're untouchable.
Well, and the question is, do they do harm or not? The biotech companies, and it's almost like whoever brought the mongoose to Hawaii, to take care of the rodent population, and the rats come out at night and the mongoose sleep at night, so they go for different things.
Yeah. So, I apologize. I'm hoping that our listeners on Oahu and Molokai try again to call in. We accidentally hung up on them, so they are still coming in. we're working on that, getting them reconnected. And so this is called Senate Bill 1555. So when people want to be looking it up to get the accurate information, they can find it. And we see that the bill was sponsored by Donovan De La Cruz. He's pretty close to to Neil Abercrombie, yes?
I don't know if he's still a senator. He may still be a senator, or maybe his sister is in Abercrombie's cabinet. I'm not sure on that.
So then when we see the key players on here, we have Lloyd Haraguchi is the person who is the executive director. And he's the one kind of taking the heat in the film. But William Isla, hopefully he will be at our event, and I'm hoping that Ron Kouchi will also.
All right, we should have our callers calling in about 30 seconds, hopefully.
Okay, so somehow we lost that a little bit. But there's so much on the internet right now, and it's passing around. I really encourage people.
We got them right now.
Okay, let's see if we can pull them up. Are you there? Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that we lost you.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm going to put my uncle in. Hold on.
Okay, so that is Bronson.
Hello, uncle.
And Bronson is calling in from Molokai, and they had a meeting last night. And so he's going to be reporting to us a little bit about what they're seeing there. And then his uncle Luka, calling in from Oahu, has a really strong mana'o on this whole topic, and we're getting them on the same line. And hey, this is coincidental, but Teddy, you know Luka, is that right?
He's a commitment graduate, as is Walter, and they're both older than I am. In fact, Luca's brother was my classmate, and his sister. I worked with his younger sister for years. But they're both. Luca's a '62 graduate, like Carlos Andrade, and Walter's a '63.
Yeah, so it's kind of just a coincidence that you guys are all in here. We just sort of discovered this late in the conversation and bringing people together, but you guys have a similar core values of what's important.
Well, we went to a school where our culture was important.
Hey, Luka, are you on yet?
Hi, good morning.
Hey, Luka. Right on. So thank you. Sorry for getting cut off there for a moment. So I don't know all that you've been able to hear so far, but we are really, really anxious to hear what you folks have to say about this, both from the perspective of being Indigenous Hawaiians as well as having attended a meeting.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Uncle, you can take it away. I mean, you can go first, and I can come in after.
Well, actually, what is of issue is our proper lawful of identity. That's where the confusion begins. Because as long as a third party comes here and calls you a different name, and then all you got to do is nod your head to be a native Hawaiian, then you gave up your original lawful rights in your proper identity by using this other identity, which disqualifies you from the lawful authority or the lawful rights.
And can you tell the listener why the Hawaiian National is so central to ceded lands? What does ceded lands mean? What is it really? And why is this particularly most at the core of this transgression the Hawaiian?
Well, the confusion starts with where people happen to believe that ceded lands have some kind of substance. Okay, let me explain in basic terms. What ceded lands are is a third party called the Republic of Hawaii gave property to another third party called the United States. The property that belonged to the first and second party, which was the Hawaiian Kingdom or the nation of Hawaii and their citizens. That is the first and second party, the Hawaiian nation and their citizens. So now, as long as they guys confuse you and call you a native Hawaiian, then you qualify under their identity of what a Hawaiian is.
Okay, I apologize for using the wrong term then.
No. You have been, how would you say, you bought the goods like everybody else been trying to sell you.
Okay.
So the rationale is the ceded lands came from a third party who had no authority in the first and second parties, kuleana, and gave it to another third party who is currently in hand, who's holding the bag right now, and claiming that they have legal ownership.
But if I understand from being in the conditioned mindset that when they put ceded lands aside, that was this land is being held aside in trust for the indigenous Hawaiian people. This is the state land.
Yeah, but the point is, see, those lands that they're trying to claim as ceded are actually belong to the ruling class of our country. So there's actually minimum 1/3 of all these lands belong to that class, and they have title to it. That's the difference.
So
those people have a royal patent and a land commission award issued by the lawful government, and that's why they have lawful title. Now, the ceded lands is a facade. It's a make-up thing that they're trying to claim to that lawful authority or that lawful claimant. It doesn't work. But the charades have been working for 100 and some odd years. Everybody's believing this. The ceded lands. It's all the charades.
But we're looking at 2 million acres. So
that's what they're claiming, sweetie. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
They just made up whatever they wanted to make up, and they're claiming that now it applies to our kingdom, or the property that belongs to our kingdom. So they don't have any titles. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Well, I'm understanding that, and that just for the listener who doesn't understand how much land we're speaking of, it's a very significant amount of land. It's almost 1/3 of the islands here, right?
Governor Abercrombie, just a couple of years ago, he did a proper identification of these lands. And that was when he testified to a committee in the United States Congress, Senate, in a Senate committee hearing. He actually claimed that when these lands were ceded to the United States, they were practically useless. And so they had no value. But all of a sudden, come 2010, all of a sudden it has value. Now they're calling it assets rather than wasted, no good, non-usable lands. Now all they did was change the words on it, and now it has a dollar value. Now they can go sell it. But they still cannot get title.
This is lands associated with the Akaka bill?
Or
is that established?
Anything associated by the third parties.
Okay.
The third parties is the Republic and the United States. As long as you keep that in mind, then we got clarity. Those are third parties. They have no authority in the first and second parties. Right. Property.
Can I conclude?
Yeah.
Okay. What Uncle is saying is that anything after 1893, after the overthrow, is nullity, null and void. How can you make acts and a resolution legitimate when it's after an illegal occupation or illegal overthrow? I'd like to know what law professor or a PhD come out and say that everything is legitimate, the acts that took place and the resolution. How is it legitimate after an illegal act, 1893? To me, as using my common sense, I'm just using my common sense now, that none of that, everything that took place after 1893 is nullity. It's null and void. It shouldn't even exist. But the conditioning that the conspirators at the time, during the statehood and the United States affiliation with the conspirators, brainwash everybody to believe that the United States, now that became the state, is the true government. They ain't the true government. None of them can show titles to any of the lands.
So, Bronson, we can work with that and look at how this particular action is perpetuating on top of that challenge. Right. And so last night you went to the hearing.
Yes, I did.
On Molokai. And about how many people were there?
I say approximately close to 30.
And did you guys just hear about it? Like I spoke with you a little bit earlier, you didn't know about it for very much ahead of time?
Shit, I just found this out yesterday. And Kanoho Helm, he the one contacted me on Facebook and told me that make sure to bring my ohana because there's a PLDC meeting about our lands. This is a big issue. You know, I'll tell you something. If this was more informative, a lot more people would have shown up to this meeting.
And actually, your Facebook post is what called my attention to this yesterday.
Right. I'll tell you something. I mean, I explained to everybody that the proper authority belongs to, like what Uncle Luka said, it's the Kingdom of Hawaii. These people are here brainwashing our people to believe that their existence is the lawful government. They're not the lawful government. They're not the Desiree. The Desiree is within our kingdom. That's what they need to understand.
So I understand that, and when we're speaking to people maybe who are new, that like this issue affects all of the people here, regardless of the ethnicity. So there is a very real grievance from the people who are indigenous to here that is even more deep than everybody else. Right. But for the people, for anybody who lives in Hawaii, what we have in front of us is a reuse of the land that there is no public process to be able to be speaking towards. So at its most core, it is impacting I don't want to say the word Native Hawaiian, but Hawaiian people who have an indigenous history here.
Oh, we're called Kanaka Maoli.
Okay, yeah. Kanaka Maoli, and so I didn't want to mispronounce that word. So the Kanaka Maoli, that has the deepest meaning, but for all of us, it has quite a lot of impact. And when we're seeing that the DLNR, when I'm reading it, I've been studying this up, that they're going to use these lands that are sensitive to the Hawaiian culture, but I look, and current examples of use of these lands might be the Honolulu Airport or the Kauai Pacific Missile Range facility. Those are examples of ceded land that are repurposed already. So we might be able to assume that we have a similar sensitivity to the Hawaiian culture when we're repurposing some of this other land, of which we have anybody, Hawaiian or not, has any ability to be putting forward their story. So, Bronson, when you were speaking yesterday at the meeting, how many people were for it? How many people were against it?
Everybody was against it.
There was nobody speaking for it?
Nobody speaking for it.
So
this is including Kanaka'es, Malahinis,
newcomers.
Newcomers, right? Even them protested against the land deal thingy.
Same thing in Hilo.
Same thing in Hilo. Yeah, we saw that. Yep. That was pretty much a broad sweep. So, did you feel heard?
Yeah, I felt I've been heard, and I've been asking several of my friends, and they said there were clarity of the true authority, and but everybody was heard that went against it.
And was it a positive response from the folks coming and listening?
Oh yeah, it was very positive.
From the DLNR folks that were sitting there?
Oh no. I mean, it wasn't positive. All they was doing is looking for their own pockets. I mean, that's just my personal input. Like any other crook. You know what I'm saying?
Did they give you reason to believe that they might change their direction based on the discussion?
Nope, I don't think so. They're just going through the formalities. They're just going to protocol of, just to satisfy the people that, or to the government that they followed the rules, and then they're still going to pass them. And then after they pass them, what they're going to do is say, it's after the fact. We cannot do nothing about it. It's already done. Done deal. That's what they're going to do. I know this already. That's why we're fighting a losing battle if we stay with the crooks. Because what they're teaching us is how to be crooks ourselves. And I'm not for that. It's not porno. Hemo.
And Luka, are you going to be at the event tomorrow?
I believe yes, ma'am.
And what is going to be your main argument to the DLNR that are listening?
At this time, we cannot even get them to uphold their own charter, much less their own state constitution, and violating their own United States Constitution. So my thing is, I've been accused of being an activist for years, and there we go again in the interpretation of the word, yeah. An activist is a dissatisfied citizen of that country. What I am is I am a promoter of my country. I promote the welfare and the benefits you get if you come to my country.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I don't scream and yell and go call out a guy names and all that stuff. I don't get into that. My thing is I'm looking for solutions. And complaining all the time, you'll never find one solution. Complaining. You gotta seek one solution. And the solution here is what we're talking about is clarity.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand the meaning of the word, you'd be surprised how you get sucked into somebody else's program just because you use their words. The same thing happened to Kalakaua, right? Before Kalakaua's time, our system was built on a Ali'i system, and he had the highest position, which was referred to as Mo'i. Okay, so Ali'i Nui. And as soon as he took on the title King, brother, we got involved with a pile of what we're dealing with right now. Exactly what we're undergoing, right? The bombardment of all this stuff comes from somebody else's language and somebody else's customs and somebody else's trickerations.
So
it's all trickerations.
If you had a message to share with Kauai and Western Oahu from people of any group, what would you like them to hear from you? What do you want them to come to the? Well, you can't tell people to come to the meeting, but what do you want them to take away from your message in a short?
I would say, our people have been aware of recent history where Lech Walesa from Poland got his country back from Russia, and Mahatma Gandhi from India got his country back from the Great Britain, and all they did was organize. Now, they didn't have too much difficulty with their identification. It was very clear to them who was Indian, or who was a Polak, or who was a Russian or a communist, and so on. In our situation here, we've been lied to for so many years. The guy standing right next to you thinks he's an American, and he has no means of proving how he became one.
Yeah.
It was just somebody else's story that kept being repeated over and over. And like I asked Walter Heen several years ago, how many times do you have to repeat the lie before it turns into a truth? How many more times, if you keep calling yourself on different names, do you get relieved from the what they call it, the responsibilities?
Okay, well, thank you on that. And you did work a number of years for the county of Oahu, yeah, or Honolulu. You worked in planning?
No, sorry, never did work for the county government. I worked for the federal government.
Oh, for the federal government. Okay.
And the shipyard, Pearl Harbor shipyard.
Okay.
I can say to the public, I can say something.
Okay.
Sure.
All I say is that everybody is welcome to come home to our country. It's there waiting. All we need to do is go home to it. We don't discriminate. Anybody is welcome to come into our country because we carry the same aloha our queen would carry was aloha, and we welcome everybody for come home because it's there. She left them for us. She left it there for us, and what we did was we remanifested it, and we're running with it. Come home already. Hele mai, come home.
May I?
Yes.
One great Kanaka of our times graduated from St. Louis High School. They learned the truth over there. In Kamehameha, they'll never teach you the truth. But in St. Louis, George Helm learned the true history.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the nightclub and go listen to him, and he would speak in between songs.
Yeah.
And he would always say, Kanaka, go do your homework.
Polole.
As simple as that.
Luka, I think
was
that's...
George Helm out of Molokai.
And he's right next to the queen. He's a legend.
That's right.
He's
Luka,
a legend. And
Luka,
we honor him over here
this is
with great respect.
This is Ted Luka. Aloha. I just wanted to, he's a very dear friend. George was one of a kind. And I was happy to have him as a roommate for like 7 years and spend time with the one on Molokai.
What drew me away about him is the fact that he's 10 years behind me, and he knew all of this stuff airing on stage,
Yeah.
And
he did a lot of homework. Believe me. I mean, that guy did a lot of research,
I understand.
And
I believe too.
Like you've done. I mean, just by what you're telling me, it's
I'm still working on it, my brother.
Well, that's how
There's
it is.
so much confusion around us. We gotta continue working on it.
That's a gift. That's a gift the princess gave us when she let us go to that school. But anyway, mahalo for your manao and brother Kalipi, mahalo. And we'll see where we can take this because our hearing comes up on the 31st, which is Friday.
Right. Yeah, we got ours tomorrow in Honolulu.
Well, I'm sure they'll be hearing from you, bro, loud and clear.
Happening. Be my pleasure.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Hey, you know what? And just to on short note, we love everybody. We're aloha and under God. We love everybody. So nobody
aloha means unconditional love.
So when we leave, we just like have everybody know that we love them from our hearts. Whether you kanaka e, kanaka hapa, we love you guys. And all I'm saying is come home to your country already. It's about time we all come and unite and come home to a country that's been waiting for us for 119 years. Come home.
Well, thank you so much for calling in, and I really appreciate the aloha from island to island and all our different people groups because this is a very important issue, and so we all need to really pay attention because we can't go back once these things are built and developed.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we're really, moving in a way that we're intending.
Pono. Moving on where that is pono.
Okay.
May I the very Act 55 violates its own constitution. It violates the charter of DLNR's existence itself.
Okay.
And it violates the Federal Graves Acts. I'm getting flustered. They just violated everything they can, and they got the state legislature to approve it. I don't can believe that.
How can the state supersede the federal?
Okay, and you know what? We have Ron Kouchi on the phone, who is our senator, and you guys can listen in while I hear Ron.
I think it might have just disconnected them, but we should have Ron. Ron, you should be on the line.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, aloha. Thank you for calling in. So we want to hear from you, and you voted yes for this, so you must have some knowledge that is very solid on why you think this is a good choice.
Sure. What we looked at is in the declining economy that we were in and shrinking state revenue, how could we wind up getting some of the property under DLNR control and other state lands to be more economically productive for us. And at this point, from the Kauai perspective, the two projects that came to mind first, and the only two that I've discussed with Chair Isla, is looking at the Wailua Marina facility, the Fern Grotto, and the Luau grounds, and seeing if there was a better way to get an economic revitalization plan to have investment in upgrading the facilities so that we would both see enhanced revenue activity. And the second is if, in fact, we should look and consider extending the lease at the Aloha Beach Resort to have the current owners reinvest into the property and, give them an opportunity to get a better average daily rate and have both they and the DLNR, have a better economic return on the investment. For any of these projects to be considered, they would have to come up with a plan. The plan would have to be submitted, and the plan would have to be publicly vetted and go through the Public Land Development Corporation and ultimately the Land Board.
So that seems like an awful big piece of legislation to be addressing kind of narrow examples like that. It seems like a really, really huge amount of collateral to be giving the state to just be helping a little individual hotel or something like that here. Plus, it almost seems as an unfair business advantage. Like, if there's a bias, kind of, isn't there, in undermining small businesses? If the state is able to come in and say, okay, we're going to select this provider to be able to utilize these cabins that was on the news example at Volcanoes National Park, or maybe just doing something here like Kokee or something like that.
I'm not.
I struggle with that.
Well, I'm not here to comment on speculation. I'm here to answer specifically why I voted for the bill was the question, and
okay.
Specific examples that I see for Kauai, and so I don't see an unfair advantage. It's how do we work with an existing partner of the DLNR to have the asset that's currently being used work better for the lessee as well as for the DLNR. And again, a plan would have to be submitted for all of us to review to say if we think, in fact, this would be an appropriate direction to take and to go forward. On a much bigger scope, one of the things that I've heard Senator Dela Cruz discuss is looking at, the Alawai Boat Harbor, and should there be some improvements made to the Alawai Boat Harbor, instead of having the dilapidated docks and the situation that exists. And if you create more economy in the harbor, then you could improve the facility itself, and it's at the entrance to Waikiki, and in most areas, the harbors are attractive and a draw and enhance your economic activity in those areas, and the Alawai falls short of a lot of those harbor activities that are there. They have lands out near the Campbell industrial area that, they've looked at that have solar PV potential and other kind of renewable energy alternatives that could potentially be more effectively used. And some of those lands have been discussed and transferred in. So, but each island, I think their legislators have been working with the DLNR to see what kind of projects may be appropriate for submission, but none of them can be done until they actually adopt rules about how they're going to go about doing their business.
So for the listener, you're on KKCR with Ron Kouchi, our senator, and we are discussing the Public Land Development Corporation. So, Ron, it sounds to me like I must be missing something central. You're giving examples of all places that are already developed that need to be strengthened, that are in some level of disrepair. Is there a limitation that I've missed here, that it's not just for anyone?
There's no limitation, but I think that if we're going to be given a tool that potentially could have extraordinary ramifications, then the prudent thing is to begin with some projects that do make sense, some projects that have community support, see how the rules work and see how the tool is working, and can it be used to actually help drive additional revenue for the operation of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, will be in concert with our community. I think in the three projects that they had discussed, one was about beehives on the Big Island. I'm forgetting the second one off the top of my head, but the third one was development of land out in Kaliloa, and after the whole Hawaii Ridge controversy, they had extreme pushback, and I believe that project is being removed from consideration from the PLDC.
You were saying earlier how you wanted to put solar panels at a certain place and how this new act would help along with that. So that's just going to help streamline a lot of these upgrades, so a lot of the certain places where it'd be pretty hard to do that with current restrictions. Is that what you're saying with this new act?
Right, although you need to be in compliance with the zoning laws, and it needs to be designed in that way, but you would have the ability to bypass some of the permitting processes.
make it quicker for upgrades and stuff like that for different places that have already been built.
And part of this, Felicia and I talked a little bit on the phone this morning when she was trying to see if I'd be able to call in, and she raised the point about jurisdictions, governmental entities on the mainland, whether it's local municipalities or state governments who have been selling assets to try and deal with their budget deficits, and she pointed out that it may be a short-term solution but not the best answer in the long run. And, I shared with her part of what we hoped with the PLDC, getting approved and creating a mechanism to try and better maximize the return on our property is that it's all being done with our property being retained and controlled by us. And land is even more precious for us as an island state. And we understand the value of the property, and so we're trying to make sure that we could have a long-term strategy that is able to fund our needs while at the same time try to keep our most valuable asset under our control, which is the property.
And Teddy Blake's in this studio.
Ron, I got a couple questions, Ron. The intent of the law, I can understand the intent of the law, number one. Number two, you talk, this has to go through or before the BLNR or on a hearing. Now, we've and you're well aware of this because we talked about this, and we're quite disturbed that a hearing very germane to Koloa was held in Honolulu, and even though there was video conferencing equipment on both sides, we couldn't get video and they weren't working, unfortunately, but we couldn't get it deferred, so our people who felt very passionate about this could testify. I mean, they just said, we're having the hearing today, so that's one of my concerns. Number two, does this open up the state to some kind of favoritism action where, a developer was saying, how come I don't have the same opportunity that an established business may have to conduct all this kind of hearings? And it's just what concerns me is it's just so many things are up in the air right now. And you probably got a much better explanation, but, I haven't been diving into this thing to really understand it or asking the questions that need to be asked. So those are my concerns.
Kind of an interesting question the other way is that it seems like the state of Hawaii has been playing with one hand tied behind their back, because we're really not here to be competitive. It's not really our job to maximize our rate of return. We're more service-oriented, and, as we've seen the evolving economy and the new world model of the difficult financial times, I think that, the old models simply are not going to sustain the services that we would like to continue to provide for our residents. One of the reasons also I was willing to give this an opportunity to see if it would succeed is that Kauai disproportionately has more lands under control of DLNR that need funding, like the Kalalau, Trail, Hanakapiai, the whole Nepali coast, Polihali, Russian Fort, Wailua, the Wailua Marina, and, KA Beach, and we have all of these requests about the need for funding and to make the facilities, presentable and to make it available so people can get to them, which is a big difficulty with the parking and some of the restroom facilities situation out at KA, road condition in Polihali. And, there's so much that could be done on Kauai to just make areas that were available to us before available to us again.
So can you help me with this really basic piece? Why does creating a community development corporation do something that the DLNR can't already do? Why does that make a difference? Why do we have to pull it further away from the system that we have right now? I really don't understand why it has to be in a separate corporation. When I look at the Agricultural Development Corporation, that worked out really well for a small handful of biotech companies, and it was, didn't avail any land to the small farmer. So I think that there's a fear that's similar.
Well, first of all, in the Agribusiness Corporation, I believe that Joe Monachica's family is trying to do the wine and, the truck vegetables and, Amy Autry, his sister, and so some of them were there, but the primary function of the ADC, as far as it related to West Kauai, was to try and preserve the irrigation systems that were in place when the plantation closed, and the first large lessee of the ADC on the West Kauai lands was Gay and Robinson. And it was really structured to try and do everything we could to support the last remaining sugar plantation on Kauai, and all of these other transactions only occurred after Gay and Robinson went out. As far as what the ADC is doing with the East Kauai water users, there are numerous smaller farmers that are operating on East Kauai. They are preserving the irrigation systems that were in place, and it is in fact working, if that's what you wanted to see happen, very well in East Kauai, to have a diverse group of activities that are going on those lands.
Okay.
As far as why the Public Development Corporation, because the DLNR is not skilled in running businesses. They were maintaining facilities from an availability to the public, and so there was a feeling that there would be the need for some business acumen and a different way of thinking, and that's why comprised on the board you also have the director of DBED, as well as the budget and finance director, who has a better understanding about financing, investment, what kind of opportunities are out there, and to bring that kind of, I think a broader perspective to, what actually the lands could potentially do.
So, Senator Kouchi, can you speak to it for a moment about, like, when there's been a very strong statement on Hawaii, Maui, Molokai, when there is an overwhelming voice that is very uncomfortable with this choice? If we have the same thing here on Kauai and the same thing happens on Oahu, do you see a way that, like, if the people just really aren't comfortable, they don't understand it, it doesn't feel right to them, what can be done to make this feel more pono, for lack of a better word?
Well, I think that, Director Ayla spoke about this a year ago at the Lehui Business Association meeting, and, he clearly recognizes that the ball is in his court, delivering on some of the transparency issues and, as far as a commitment to getting public input, clearly lands on his shoulders, and he's accepted that responsibility. He understands that everyone is looking at him, and at that point, the proof will be in the pudding if any of the projects that are currently put before it would go forward.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I know that even just this week, the PLDC folks were refusing to allow Olelo to broadcast the event tomorrow, and there was a big fight put up so that it is going to go on the air. But, that seems symptomatic to a deaf ear, that the DLNR might feel unaccountable to the public if they're not even willing to let it go on the air.
To me, and there's a much more interesting political angle as far as part of the judgment. This is something that the governor signed into law and felt would be a tool that he needed available to him to help revitalize the economy. Here in Hawaii, he's going to be out in 2 years seeking support to continue to serve in his capacity, and I think that it certainly would behoove him to be sure that the public sees this as a positive tool that was used well. If it isn't, then he would certainly have a big problem. And The other thing, obviously, every year we discuss a multitude of bills, and if there's things that need to be discussed, then I'm sure that this would be one of those that'll be coming around in January.
So, are you going to be at the event on Friday?
At this point, I'm certainly trying to make sure that I can get there.
Okay, well, I appreciate your feedback. If I understood you correctly, I think I heard that the voters' recourse is simply to vote the governor out of office if they're unhappy with this, that there doesn't sound like either the Senate or the DLNR really is holding out reconsidering Act 55.
No, I said one aspect is the governor's potential re-election in 2 years and being held accountable about how he uses the tool. But the second thing I said is that each year every matter can be discussed again, and so this is potentially something that could be discussed this January again. That was the second thing that I said.
So what's the point? Yeah, I heard that. So I'm trying to hear it correctly. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to understand, like when we're having these public hearings, what's the point of having the public hearing when there's such a strong sentiment? If it's like, well, we'll give it a little thought in January, this PLDC is about fast-tracking projects through so they're not hung up. If we're looking at an election in 2 years, or if we're, going, okay, we'll wait till January, then we'll think about it, maybe you can come back and talk to us. A lot can happen between July or August and January or 2 years from now. So I'm just trying to help people have a little bit more hope that there's an ear that's listening to the public. It seems that there's a pretty strong statement that's coming out, and there was very, very little public debate prior to the enactment of this.
Well, and people certainly have the opportunity to express a wide array of views and opinions when they come out to the public hearing. And not liking the PLDC certainly is one of those opinions that they could freely express. But to help clarify what the public meetings are about, there is a current law that has created the PLDC. They're holding public hearings about the rules that they're looking to adopt as to how the PLDC would operate. So if there are concerns about the proposed rules that are in place and how the PLDC should function or could function better, then if someone were to target their testimony more towards the rules themselves and what is either good or bad about the rules and what would make rules palatable for the PLDC operationally to go forward, then that is something that they are going to be voting for immediately. If it is about whether the PLDC should exist or not, well, that's not the primary function of these hearings. Clearly that message would be heard and brought back, but nothing could be done regarding that until next January at the earliest.
So thank you, Senator Kouchi, and you are listening to KKCR, Hanalei K-A-Q-A Kilauea. Teddy, did you have a comment?
I just one of the things we always heard down in Puepu was vested rights, and that's one of the questions I'd like to get cleared up. At what point does a developer have vested rights as they're going through this public process of getting comments about the development that they're doing? Because once vested rights are passed on, then it's like a taking, and then we're subjected to a lawsuit, and that's one of the questions I'd like to pose on Friday and hopefully get an answer.
And hopefully some of them will have read the Nukuli decision who are present to answer the questions you'll ask, Eddie.
Okay.
And I just want to be clear, the 4 Kauai legislators were invited to give a wrap-up on the past legislative session and what was coming up. And, we made it very clear last week Thursday at the LBA meeting that this was happening. Pat Griffith, the president of the organization made it clear, and we were encouraging anyone who was interested in attending. The more attendance, the better. We had a reporter from the Garden Island newspaper, so I believe that was included in his article. So I know from our perspective, the 4 Kauai legislators have been talking about this meeting that was coming up and encouraging people to, attend and participate and have their voices heard on this, on this important matter. And secondly, I believe that the governor is going to be on Kauai on September 19th, and I believe one of the things that he would like to do on that September 19th meeting is have an opportunity to listen to members from the community. So I'd keep my eyes and ears open for the information coming forward, and if September 19th occurs, it would also be an opportunity to speak directly to the governor and not just the DLNR, who will be present on Friday night.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And Senator Ron Kouchi, we really appreciate your calling in.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will talk to you later. Now we have Walter Ritte, who is he's running for a position at OHA, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and he has done a whole lot to make a big difference in our state constitution in the past. And we're going to have him on the line. Walter, are you there?
This is a caller.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. All right.
Hi, aloha. Hi, my name is Ipo Keen. I live on Maui.
Okay, thank you.
I'm calling because I have already been to this meeting that was on Maui, and I want to prepare your people to let them know that they are not going to be able to ask any questions. None. Okay? This is such a big stink pilau thing that your representative there said that this money that they would be getting from the PLDC would be to work on already developed projects. Okay?
Those were his examples. Mm-hmm.
Yes, these were his examples. Okay? Then why do they need to include the royal lands? This is my question. Okay? If these are already pre-developed things that he's talking about, and to restoring them to functionality, why do they need the royal land, and why are they being so secretive about this? They had one meeting prior to making a corporation within a government. Does everybody get that? That this is not just another corporation coming from the private sector. This is the government of Hawaii, behind the back of all the people that have elected these representatives, have gone behind and made a private corporation using money and assets that are in the trust for the Kanaka Maoli and the Kanaka E. This is not to be used just for the state at the state's whim. Just because they cannot manage the money that they have received every time they get taxes. We have already been taxed to repair our roads, keep our public facilities in good working order. So I don't understand this representative's examples. Also, he's saying pretty much, listen up, Kauai, because you're next, Kauai, and Oahu, you're the next ones to get these useless meetings, that there is nothing we can do.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
About how many people came to the event on Maui?
We had approximately 50 people, but we had a day's notice.
Yeah, we're seeing that short notice too. So, what percentage?
Be prepared, because when you walk in the door, they are going to hand you approximately 150 sheets of paper, give you less than 5 minutes to read all of it, and have all your questions based on it, or on the paperwork that they give you. They will not tell you who is involved in this, what real estate broker. And the gentleman says because DLNR is not skilled at doing business. Neither is the government. That's why they're in financial default. And is a backroom way of getting their hands on money that people don't really see because it's in a trust.
So, was there anybody speaking for this from the audience? Was everybody against it?
One person.
Not one person.
Not one person. There were a couple people that got up, and I guess because the man said that only we could only give suggestions to the rules or whatever that they want, chapters 301, 302, and 303. Okay? Those are the rules that they want suggestions on. Those were the only things. Now, people did give them suggestions. One of the paperwork that they handed us said that they wanted to be in pono. The large response was, you're not in pono, first off. Don't try to be pono, okay? Because you're not pono. Pono, they have a totally different answer for what pono is. But the people there, and I mean, we had Kanaka Maoli, we had Malahini, we had visitors that came and said what they are doing to the people of Hawaii is a travesty. It's an atrocity to do business this way. They are treating us as if we do not exist at all. This is not just about the royal lands. This is because the people are finally waking up and are finally going, you know, I am Kanaka Maoli. I am Kanaka. I'm Malahini, but I like the Kanakas. You know? Mm-hmm. And what's been done to them for over 100 years is wrong. And the people are waking up to this. And because of the formation of the Hawaiian nation, or the restoration, I should say, of the Hawaiian nation, because we are a lawful nation, that this is why now they have to do it all behind doors. I am sending out letters to everybody that I know of, to people that I know that are from Hawaii that live on the mainland, that live in Europe, that live in Australia and Africa, because this involves them too, even though they're not here right now.
Well, I want to support you on that. I think that this is something that it really does go much further than Hawaii Nei. We have all of our Kanakas who have been almost forced to emigrate.
Yeah.
Because I know that there is very many that have left with a broken heart, is left not by choice but out of economic necessity, yes. And so that
we were that way. I am only back here because now my children are grown and they're living their lives, but they all want to come home. And you know what they tell me? Even though we're paying for 6 years of college, because you know when you're growing up in Hawaii, everybody tells you get a good education so you can get a good job. You know, so you can come home. Well, my son has a very good education, but he can't even come home. And it's just him and his new bride. They cannot afford to live here.
Well,
my daughter can't even come home.
That is such a very, very important voice. And like Hawaii needs to have their indigenous people here. It's the best for all of us. And so we want to be able to welcome them home. And this is very important. I thank you for calling in. I have Walter Ritte waiting on the line.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this to our people because it really needs to have more out there on the airwaves.
It was great hearing from you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Thank you. Right. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. Walter?
Hey. Aloha.
Thank you. So you want to tell the caller a little bit about yourself really quick? And I don't know how much of the show you've been able to hear. I appreciate that you're calling from off island.
Yeah, I haven't heard much of the show because I just got off the airplane. I'm back on Molokai.
Ah, okay.
So I'm at home, feeling very comfortable.
Okay, and you were at the event last night?
On Molokai, I attended the meeting. It was a pretty rough meeting. There was a lot of angry people, angry at a lot of things on this issue, and it's like the rest of the state. It's almost like this thing has gone viral, and these guys is like a lightning rod. This whole issue is like a lightning rod, where all the angry things that people have inside of them against the government, against the agencies, against what people are doing to our resources. All of this is coming to the surface right now.
And why do you think this particular issue is such a trigger?
I think because of the way it was handled by the government, the way it was created, the way the law was created, the underhanded way that they added amendments to it last minute, and the kinds of amendments that were so anti-environmental, anti-people's processes. All of these things were being attacked by our government, and they were being done in a way that nobody had any chance to come in and say anything about it. So it was, I think they sort of brought it upon themselves, and the timing was perfect, where now everybody who has been mad with the government is now mad at this one issue.
Well, when I look at this is a very core issue, because the use of land, and when we're talking about 2 million acres, give or take, that's
right.
Very, very significant impact. When we were hearing from our Senator Ron Kouchi, he was giving us all examples of decaying infrastructure, decaying leasehold properties, where people have businesses that are struggling, and this would be something that it would help it become more healthy. But I notice in the writing, it does not limit it to existing improved pieces of property. It looks pretty open scripted.
Yeah, the writing is, to me, is insignificant. What is significant is the fact that the government has decided to use our public resources for private gain and profit via corporations and people who want to do any kind of profit ventures. And for me, the rules will change every year. When they first started this whole idea, all they talked about was in 2011 was what you're talking about. Oh, let's go do something so we can get money so that we can go take care of our resources. And then the second year, they started putting in all these exemptions on how these things were going to be run and who was going to participate and all that kind of stuff. So you can imagine what's going to happen next year and the next year and the next year. So what people see is not what's happening right now, but what is going to happen.
What the potential is. So you are listening?
Potential, yeah. I mean, everybody knows what the potential is when you start putting profit motive into your public resources.
In a very open-ended piece of legislation that, best I can tell, does not really have a mechanism in there for review. For the listener who might have just tuned in, we have Walter Ritte on the line, running for Office of Hawaiian Affairs, but we're really discussing this issue of the Public Land Development Corporation. Walter has done much policy work with the state. So, Walter, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was at the legislature all of last year and watching what was going on. It was appalling what was going on. This bill that we're talking about now is only part of a flurry of about 15 bills.
Really?
All geared towards how do we get fast profits out of our natural resources. And some of them died and some of them passed, but you can be sure that a lot of them are going to come back up again next year. So what's happening with this bill, this
1155, I think it is.
The 1155 is a perfect example of what's been happening at the legislature and the whole change and mood of the legislature to start using our natural resources for private gain. Mm-hmm. So this is great. What's happening right now is just great. But, being mad at it is just the first step. And the second step is going to have to be how are we going to repeal this thing?
That's what I want to ask, because we just had Senator Ron Kouchi. It is the case that all four of our representatives, our legislative representatives from Kauai, did vote in favor of this. And what I felt like I was getting from Senator Kouchi was, if people are uncomfortable with it, they can come and talk at another public hearing in January. They could choose to not reelect Governor Abercrombie. These things all seemed kind of vague to me. Our last caller was very discouraged.
If the senator is listening to his constituents, then he should be man enough to foster a bill to repeal this thing.
Okay, so there you're getting to where I want to know. Can we do something? Can we put a bill? Because we just had a caller from Maui talking about how discouraging it was to come to this meeting where it was very, very narrow parameters of which people were able to speak, feeling powerless. We're hearing that pretty consistently, and I'm wondering what will make people feel empowered. How do we? So you're saying sponsor a bill.
If you look at the process, I mean, everybody comes into the room. Nobody gives us any information. Nobody tells us what state lands are available, what kinds of things are they planning to do. Nothing. And then you can't ask questions. So all they did was throw fuel on the fire. So everybody is really uptight on this thing, and we need to force our elected officials to be man enough to come up and sponsor a bill that's going to repeal this very bad bill. This is a very bad bill.
It just irritates me that nobody knew about this. I mean, when it was the first time that you heard about this?
Well, nobody heard about this.
Yeah, nobody heard about it.
And that's the way the legislature is doing business now, and that's what's getting everybody upset. They do this to all of their bills.
Exactly. So
sneaking things through.
We're trying to stop this, but we were pretty much just told by Ron that you can't stop this at least for a while. Maybe we're going to have to force that bill through. But, this is all about quickening the process of development and upgrades, as he was saying. So it's like, if this is just one bill, imagine if there's something that we don't agree with that they're building. This is only going to quicken the process that it gets through everything. So, per se, there's something that the public does not agree with. In my eyes, it's only going to make it harder for us to protest more development. So I don't agree with it.
I think this is a perfect bill where the public now needs. I mean, I've never seen the public get so worked up, and I've never seen the public get so educated so fast on something that the government was hiding. This is great.
Yeah, hiding.
Yeah, they were hiding this thing, so now that's why everybody is mad also, because they were hiding this, and that's the new way that government is operating. So what we should do right now is make this the watershed and just demand that come next year there's a bill that repeals this law. This should be something that we should all jump on and say, no, this thing got to, coaches, you're going to have to repeal this law.
Straight up.
This is so, this is in your face, black and white, bad bill.
If you ask the public, do they support this? I guarantee 90% of the public will say no. And It's their job to be supporting the public, the people. Okay. And if you're not supporting that, then what are you in office for?
So the public's got to realize that nothing is free. If we don't demand from your senators, if you don't demand, they're not going to do anything. They're going to say, okay, people are going to forget. Come January, this thing is going to be forgotten, and we'll just ride this storm, and we'll get what we get in the end. And that's the way it works. Mm-hmm. But if we keep yelling at them, if we keep demanding come the next legislative session, and everybody's there telling them, you repeal this thing, it's going to get repealed. But if we stop grumbling, if we only grumble, if we don't push these guys to do something, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we got to push. We got the support of everybody in the state on this one.
So what was the vote on it? Do you know how many people were in favor, how many were against?
There's probably, you can count on one hand how many guys voted against this bill. Everybody was supporting it.
There's just one senator that voted against it.
Just one. Who was it?
That was Leslie Hara, I believe.
And everybody else we had
23-1.
Wow.
So I don't think any of them realized what was going to happen the following year, where they put all of these exemptions and they give the governor all these powers over our land, where they can just do whatever they want and partner up with all these corporations so that we can make some money out of all of our private land, our public land.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing got out of control because of greed. And I think I really enjoy what's going on. I've never seen so much anger. You should have seen our meeting last night. God, things were flying around the place. They were tearing up things, throwing things. People were just angry at this thing. How dare them take our public lands and just give it to the corporations like this without us knowing.
And try to sneak it under our noses like that. It's just...
this is outrageous, and we shouldn't stand for this.
Is there any senator or I think it would have to come from the House of Representatives, right? A bill has to come from the House of Representatives. Is there anybody willing to stand up against this?
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to have to demand. It can come from the Senate. It can come from the House. It can come from anywhere. You know, all we need is a law, is a bill that says we're going to repeal this and see who's going to support it and who's not.
So
and I tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of changing of the votes if somebody's brave enough to at least put the bill out there.
Well, you know what? Like, this is a pretty interesting thing because we've already had our primary. I got a little bit of wind of this maybe a week or two ago, and then it was something that Bronson Kalipi from your island had just put on Facebook that really caught my attention. This is already after the primary, right? And most of these people are running unopposed. So then it's 4 more years or 6 more years or 2 more years before that they're really going to feel any heat from this?
No, well, the heat has to come January at the legislature.
But if they're already just elected, why are they going to care?
Because people are going to be yelling and screaming at them, and that's how the system is going to work. Because they want to get elected next time. But this is a good chance for people power to come to the front. Do we have people power in this state, or do people just grumble and do nothing?
And this is a perfect example to see. Are we going to step up to the plate, or are we just going to sit while another legislative act that takes away everything we cherish?
Well, I will tell you, when this came to my attention, the most yesterday, I was like, I don't like to be speaking out on the air when I don't have really strong mana'o on an issue. So I called around for a handful of people whom I really respect. They tend to have a lot of knowledge on public policy, and they were all pretty accurate and said, this caught me by surprise. I'm not going to mention names, but these are our community leaders. They're not elected leaders, but very few people were really very aware of much of this at all. And so we have this meeting just this coming Friday, trying to bring it up so that we get more people to come forward. But it's a David and Goliath challenge, and it's very, very frustrating.
Well, I have a slightly different view of the whole thing. I've been involved in all kinds of stuff this year.
Okay.
And we got civic clubs, we got Sierra clubs, we got all kinds of clubs. Just wait to the hearings tomorrow on Oahu. There's going to be pickets. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on. There's petitions going on. And this is like, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all of this stuff started hitting the fan. And I've never seen anything like this. This is going to be something that's going to really hit the fan. I mean, I don't see how these guys are going to take this heat. If the people back off, then they're going to get away with it. But there's a momentum, and if we can just keep that momentum to go beyond grumbling, to actually be people doing things, doing stuff, writing letters, talking to their guys, coming to the legislature, whatever it's going to take. Because this thing is a symptom. This is like just the tip of the iceberg of what's happening at the legislature. And if we don't do something, then we're gonna deserve what we're gonna get, and that's all of our resources getting put to corporations.
Well, I thank you for coming on the air to share your mana'o on this. I hope everybody's hearing. It's always sorry for me to hear that what it takes is basically throwing a collective temper tantrum. That's what I feel like I'm hearing. Can we do it? Probably, possibly. It's a hard way to live life. It's nice to be joyful and be able to be working on solutions rather than battling.
Well, every once in a while, you're going to have to stand up and say no. And that's life.
That's right.
You have to stand up and say no every once in a while. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you think you're supposed to be getting.
That's right. Well, thank you. I've got all our lines lit up. People care very much about this, so I'm going to take some other calls, but we're really happy to have you on the air.
Thank you for taking on this issue. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you for holding. You're on the air.
Okay. So this sounds like Agenda 21 coming to town in a freight car. Hello?
You're on.
Oh, good. And it has, Agenda 21 has so many different things, and it's being put out all in every country of the world. And so people should educate themselves of Agenda 21 and read the rules about land use and all of these things that have all different names as they're, and they.
So can you tell people I know what Agenda 21 is, but can you help the listener who does not know what Agenda 21 is?
Yeah, it's a United Nations plan for the world, and it's being implemented in all different kinds of ways, and the end result isn't very pretty, and that's what you need to look at of what the map of the future is for us. And it's not being able to even walk on these properties, these acreage. Even on the mainland, they're stopping access to publicly owned lands and taking out bridges and stuff.
Right. It's like a forceful restructuring of our resources.
A forceful restructuring
of our zoning, all of that. I want to
tell the good news, if there is any, is that there are places, city councils in remote places, and I think one Santa Cruz, which isn't that remote, but little places, little counties, and one state legislature who has rejected Agenda 21 in all of their working.
I have seen that. Now I want to tell the listener, you're listening to KKCR Hanalei KAQA Kilauea, and we are discussing the Public Land Development Corporation, and there is a public meeting on this tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Wilcox Cafeteria. Excuse me, Friday. It's at Friday at Wilcox Cafeteria. August 31st.
The meeting?
Yeah.
Meeting's on Friday, August 31st, Wilcox Cafeteria.
Yeah.
And this is something that, like Walter says, is going viral, and it's something that requires a bit more thinking on our part, more thinking on our legislators' part. I mean, when I see the kind of reaction that has been triggered in the last 4 days, I'm just amazed. And it's something that wasn't expected to happen, but it's something that the people have just gravitated around. And Friday's the last public hearing. That's going to be on
That's
Kauai.
right. And tomorrow, Wednesday, it's on Punch Bowl Street at the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We have a handful of other callers.
Okay, I'll clarify that.
And we'll be putting them on the air. Aloha, you're on the air.
Hi, just a very quick comment.
Uh-huh.
First of all, big mahalo to Walter, and a big mahalo to you guys. This is a really, really great show, and it's something that we can as a community we can grab onto. But just a real quick comment is, one thing that Walter mentioned was the kind of pilikia that we could create for the legislatures that are out there. One thing that has happened nationwide many times is we could have a recall election just on this one issue. And if it was a vote of 23-1, my goodness, there might be 23 seats out there that might have a problem on a recall basis. So that's just an idea.
Well, I mean, that's an idea. And you don't have to get off the line right yet on that. I mean, the challenge is, I'm not discounting that. I know for myself, I really, really like to work in unity. I like to be working on solutions. It's hard for me to champion a fight. And I really, actually, for anybody out there listening that is one of our legislators, please come forward and help us, because this would be way better if we could be working on this in the positive. So,
well, as a community, when I'm saying the Kauai community, we became very proactive with the Lingle Ferry, and I'm one of the local guys who got on the surfboard and sat out there, in the harbor. And there was many brothers and sisters who did the same thing. And I love what Walter was saying. We just need to kind of step up to the plate and get real proactive with this particular issue. And, those are my comments.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, and thank you guys so much. Huh?
All right.
Bye-bye.
We had a call. Somebody wanted to clarify. You guys were talking about Wilcox schools, and they wanted to make sure that nobody thought it was Wilcox Hospital cafeteria.
Oh, yes. The cafeteria That's great. And I have to say, the cafeteria at Wilcox Hospital, they got delicious food. But this is Wilcox School. I'll sometimes even just eat at the hospital when I'm in Lihue and I'm hungry. Good value. We've got another caller. You're on the air.
Hi. I just wanted to clarify the comment about recall.
Okay.
I've looked into that, and there is no constitutional provision for recall in Hawaii. I don't know. I'm sure a lawyer could probably dig deeper and find something that would work, but I think that those are the alternatives, that the only ones that we have at this point to start looking into. And I also realize, and everybody else should realize too, that the mayor has to sign off on this for the island of Kauai. Mayor Carvalho has to give his consent.
Is that right? And has he given that consent?
I don't know. I really don't know. But the thing is, when people do go to this hearing on Friday, regardless of what these dictators say about only commenting on the rules, people go there because this is their public hearing, okay? Their public hearing that they are entitled to, and they say whatever is on their mind. They say anything they want. Okay, that's the purpose of a public hearing. They cannot tell you what to say.
Right. They can try and control the meeting. It sounds like in these other islands they did not, and maybe that is what needs to happen.
And I would also suggest that people do not comment specifically on the rules. Do not, because it's more or less tacit consent when you go into their game and you start playing their game. Repeal and abolish this act, and that's all that people need to focus on, is how to do that. And most importantly, this governor needs to be impeached, because the PLDC is not going around with proposals. They have already started acting on this. Therefore, Abercrombie and these legislators are already in breach of fiduciary trust. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? You're on the air.
Oh, thank you. I just had one question. I agree with pretty much everything everyone has said. And we are probably going to have to scream and yell and jump in the water if we have to. But we did that before, and it worked. The question is now, I remember reading in the paper the other day, I don't know what it was in connection with, but Linda Lingle is now a realtor, if she wasn't before. And somebody had asked a question earlier saying, who was the realtor involved? And I just wondered if it was her. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, that would be interesting. I would have to imagine that, that's... that would be such a conflict of interest when she's running for...
I understand. I don't think she really is, but if I found out she was, I would have to vote to get rid of Abercrombie and Lingle and get her out of the state.
Well,
but she's like a virus.
Well, thank you for sharing your mana'o on that. Okay, I've got lines lit up.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Aloha, you're on the air.
Hi, I just had one question that I still don't understand. Why do we need to have two governments, and why won't they just leave?
Teddy, can you take that?
Why would we have two governments?
And why won't Abercrombie and why won't all of that just leave? Why don't they just go away?
The state government? You mean you're talking about the Hawaiian national government versus,
Well,
is that
I don't understand what we still need a state government for.
Is this a serious question or, it's a very...
No, this is dead serious from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, and so, if we want to look at it from the indigenous Hawaiian perspective, or I should say the Hawaiian national perspective, I believe that they consider Hawaii an occupied nation. So if you look at the circumstances of other occupied nations in the world, and there are very many of them, they don't always have a choice. Whether, like, for example, Taiwan, they don't want, or Tibet. Tibet doesn't want to have China in there, but China is in there. Taiwan has managed to hold their own. China feels like Taiwan belongs to them. This is a human condition issue. And actually, all of this that we're speaking about, it bleeds over into many national and international issues. This is people wanting to take power over a piece of land that is very, very common, whether it's an individual or a country or an element of the government. We all want to be able to control things. Right, actually, I shouldn't put it quite that personal, but because it's not actually true. I don't want to control my neighbor's land. But
Tibet and China is a perfect example.
And I thank you for that, because to us, it's not just land.
Right, it's your culture, it's everything.
Yes.
I give the example sometimes for people who don't understand. This was something that came to my own mind, is if Hawaii was traded away for debt, if, say, we were given away to China, that would be so profound for everybody who lives here. And if that happened, if Chinese became, or Mandarin became our main language, and our street names all changed, and all our culture changed, we were allowed to stay, but we had to shift our identity, we had to shift our calendar. That is on a par with what I understand happened for the Hawaiian people. Does that sound close?
Yeah, and it hurts.
Yes. Yes. And I hear you. And I am sorry.
Well,
I think that in some places they don't even consider us a race anymore, a nationality. They don't even recognize us as a people because of what the United States has done.
That's happened in the United States of America.
Yeah, and really, I grew up in the Four Corners area. That would be Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, and there are plenty of indigenous people there, and they are very fully their own people group, and it is equally challenging, traumatic. It's unfortunately it happens everywhere, and I want to speak to being somebody who's born into the occupier. It's not easy for us to know how to do it, and also just on the other end of that, when people say, go back to where you're from. Well, where is that? Where is that? It's hard to know. Is that Sicily? Is it Ireland? Where is that? We at some point.
How do you think we feel when people say that to us?
Well, living here, people will say, go back. And then you want to think, well, where is back? At some level, we're all human beings, and we all need to, find respect for each other. So I'm just saying it's not simple, even on the side of being one of those that's part of the eclipsing culture. For the Native Americans, for the indigenous Hawaiian people, it's a human condition issue, and I am honoring what you're saying. I don't know if that helps at all. I do have a bunch of calls holding. Is there a thought that you would like to leave us with?
No. I'm disgusted enough, thank you.
Well, aloha. Thank you for calling.
Much love and aloha and blessings.
Aloha to you too. Thank you.
Aloha, you're on the air.
Hi, aloha. I just wanted to share one little analogy with to clarify for some people about the title of the land, about about the theft of the land. That the analogy is if my grandfather stole your grandfather's cherry 1957 Chevy, and they both passed away, and you're walking down the street, you see your grandfather's Chevy in my driveway. Now, I inherited the car, but you still inherited the title for it. You got the paper in your hand that says it's yours, but I got the car in my driveway. Whose car is it?
perfect analogy. I like it.
The American adage is possession's 9/10 of the law, which doesn't make it right. Well, it doesn't make it right.
The Hawaiian nation still got the pala.
That's right.
The word. Right on. God bless you guys.
Hey, great analogy. Thank you for calling. Aloha.
So, Teddy, what do you think?
Well, I think this is something that wasn't expected. You know, and I really I have a lot of respect for our state delegation, Representatives Kawakami Togioka and Morikawa and Senator Kouchi, and I wouldn't work to have them removed because I think they do a good job. But you know, I'd like to speak with each and say, what can we do about this? Because it's obvious that there's more con than pro. And you know, how can we work together to do this? I mean, I would hate to see us having to go through a whole slate of legislators, because I don't think you could replace the ones we have with the kind, you know, the quality of the ones we have with what you've, you know, outside. But this is definitely a big problem, and I see it, you know, from being on the community side and going after our culture and historic preservation. I see it as, I mean, they can come in and just swoop, read the paper. It doesn't specify exactly what they can do. How does one guy get vested rights when he doesn't have to go through what everybody else does? I mean, to me, it's like open shut case for an attorney to come in there and say, hey, listen, man, my guy deserves the same kind of treatment that this guy gets.
Mm-hmm. And then even that begs, for me, a really big issue. It's a challenge actually all the way down to the American system, is why must everything be a commodity? That's what I keep feeling through this, hearing this whole justification for it. If we can't afford our parks, maybe we don't need to have our parks, but that's different than selling or repurposing our parks for an exploited commercial use.
Well, that's where your priority, you know, it's where the priorities lie. And I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, you know,
do you have a Facebook?
I mean, this is my personal views. If Oahu doesn't have enough electricity, why do they need it from somewhere else?
Right. We need to live within our own kuleana. We need to live within our own area of management. And if we can't get our finances worked out right, we don't do it by selling off the land.
I made a comment to you about a guy asking me because of the rain that we were having in Kolo this morning. He was a visitor and he said, how do Hawaiians describe too much rain? I said, they had no description for it. They had no word for it. Because the opposite of that is too little. And when you live in the most isolated archipelago in the world, it matters that you make do with what you got. Because, you know, back in the days of our kupuna, there wasn't Matson or United Airlines.
That's right. We had a culture here, and I can say we because I do feel like I identify with what's here. This island has had a history of being very self-reliant. We have a number of more calls, so I'm going to take this. Aloha, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Felicia. I just wanted to call in something that came to mind when I listened to people calling, and something you said about it's hard to bring up a fight or to bring a fight to something. I think something we can all do when we go to this meeting and we go to voice our concerns about this issue is to come because we're angry, but to control that anger and to try and remember that these people we're making these pleas to are people that have just gotten too greedy or too caught up or forgotten the good things. And, you know, by coming angry, I think sometimes we lose our argument and we don't get our point across. But if we come and try to appeal to these people, and really reach out to them on a human level, you know, like these are beautiful places, and to cut off access to the people who love them, the people who live here, is a terrible thing to do, and that can't happen. And I just hope that we can all get our point across. And so I would appeal to everyone to come out and be passionate, but to try and appeal to the greater humanity of these people, and to know that you can come and be passionate and not come looking for a fight or to be so enraged that you don't get your point across, you know?
And I am largely in agreement with that, and sometimes there is a place for righteous anger. And I think what I'm in so much agreement with you for is that people have higher credibility when they hold their calm and they have a very well thought out story that they're able to present their position clearly and unequivocally. And I think this particular topic seems to really lend itself to many, many arguments against it. Though they're going to try and narrow people down, so if you allow yourself to be narrowed down as much, that's what I'm hearing, these people who've gone through the ordeal of going to these meetings, and when the people seem indifferent. I know for myself, when I look at somebody who's not even listening or they're writing, it's very discouraging. So we will hope that they do a better job than that, and we encourage people to be able to come out. But yes, I weigh, in alignment with what Teddy was saying too, is finding the best in people and working from there, but working tirelessly. And
definitely.
So thank you for calling. We got more people lined up, so we appreciate you. Thank you. Aloha, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I wasn't really too impressed with the senator.
Okay, can you speak directly into your phone? It's very muffled.
Okay. I wasn't really impressed with that senator on this issue. I was much more impressed by the people calling from Molokai and all the other callers that are so outraged at this. And the person's just in your studio now, the Hawaiian who's talking about it. Teddy, yeah. Because I wish all these people that are talking on the show could run the show. I mean, because they're so heartfelt and care about Hawaii with not like dollars and cents in their eyes, but because of the beauty of this place and what it means to the earth and all that stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to restate what I'm hearing your main point to be, and then this is the thing, is that we can't hardly hear you. It's very muffled, so I appreciate that you're saying that you're hearing a heartfelt energy.
I guess this is my comment on the other lady who is really sensible to be calm and not get too angry but feel passionate. But, you have to get angry. I mean, in a passionate sort of way, you have to get fired up. I mean, you have to, you can't be too calm.
Well, I have to say, I watched the film on the Hawaii, the Hilo show, and I appreciated it, actually. Teddy, was it overwhelming for you, or?
Very overwhelming.
That was something that would have been hard for you to be at. If you were at the Hilo event, if you saw that much strength of emotion, would that be a hard one for you to attend?
Not necessarily. This, it's the type of people you saw there were like everyday guys.
Yeah.
And what this reminds me of, Felicia, was when Heminer wanted to build a third golf course at Ninini Point in Lihui, and you had everybody on one side and just Heminer's guys on the other side. We had guys from all walks of life. It wasn't just a blue collar thing; it was blue and white collar, and everybody felt very strong about it. And it's the last time I've seen the people of Kauai come together like that.
Yeah, so that was good. So thank you, caller. We're having a hard time hearing you, but I appreciate what you've had to say. So thank you so much.
Maybe this will be a firing point like all your people have been talking about. I hope it is.
Okay, thank you. Aloha. And we have John Gordon in the house. We're going to have Jazz with John very soon. And we have coming up the County Council report and some of our underwriters we're going to acknowledge. We're going to take one more call, then we're going to move on to that. And thank you. You've been listening to our show about the Public Land Development Corporation. So we have a caller on the air. You're on the air. Hello. Can you turn your radio down, please?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Completely deaf. One verse from Midnight Oil, which some of us know and some of us don't. The time has come to say fair is fair, to pay the rent, to pay our share. The time has come. A fact's a fact. It belongs to them. Let's give it back.
Okay, so that's a big statement.
Pretty clear. I wear it on the back of my jacket.
That's a good one.
It's, from Beds Are Burning by Midnight Oil. There are several shows on KKCR that play it.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Aloha. Thank you for calling.
Eric, do you have any last comments? I got another call too.
You were saying that was the last time you had seen Kauai ever rise up. Was what was the incident?
At Ninini Point, they wanted to do a third golf course when Hamilton was developing what's now the Marriott at Kalapaki.
So that was a really big topic for Kauai. And all this is going to allow a lot more development for all of Hawaii. So that was a really big topic and issue for Kauai. Not only does this affect Kauai, it affects all the rest of the island. So hopefully, we're doing our part to spread the word, and hopefully all of Hawaii and Kauai, the public, is going to get out there. We have to start doing something about this.
And I want to acknowledge, too, for people who are very much in support of this, it's your time to come down and say that, too. I mean, maybe that's some time to come down, because what we're hearing is island after island, everyone 100% opposed. Such an interesting contrast that in the Senate, 23-1 in favor. That's an amazing contrast, but coming down, I will certainly go down to try and hear and learn more. We have another caller on the air. And so we'll take this one last call. You're going on right now? Okay, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I'm calling. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on the air.
I'm calling from Kona.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome.
I just wanted to mention the petition on change.org to abolish the PLDC. There's also a Facebook page, Abolish the PLDC. If you'd like more information, go to those sites, sign the petition, and go to the meeting.
How was the meeting at your place?
It was unanimously opposed, 55 people.
Wow.
A caller had a question for someone that went to the meeting. So they gave you a big stack of papers to go through when you first arrived at the meeting. Right. Were you allowed to keep those papers?
Yes.
Okay, you were allowed to keep them. That's what the caller had asked. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one last thing. Walter Ritte is right. In January, we're going to have to howl our bloody heads off to repeal this, and I mean everybody. Hawaiians, environmentalists, hunters, Tea Party members.
Anybody that loves Hawaii, pretty
everybody.
much.
Because right now, American lawyers went into New Zealand and they changed the land use laws, and now the Chinese are fracking New Zealand. People were asleep, and now they're mad.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen.
Yeah, and I know with the volcano there, you guys really have a feature that is probably something very much wanting to be tapped in a similar way.
Absolutely, and they want to do it with public-private money because investors, smart investors, know that you don't drill on a live volcano. It's a bad investment. Anybody knows that knows anything about investing. That's why this is happening, and it ties in to the APEC meeting 5 months before this all started.
Well, I really appreciate your calling in.
There's towns and states all across the country that are selling their bridges, selling their county buildings. They're ripping the skin off the bones now.
That's right. And APEC, for the listener, means the Asia Pacific Economic Conference that happened in Hawaii maybe about a year ago.
Yep.
And
5 months after that, the whole PLDC started.
I didn't know that one. But
Connect the dots.
Connect the dots. Well, I know that there's been a lot of claims for the bottom of the sea around Hawaii.
Yep.
We've had callers in and
visitors. There's a big market for manganese mining, and we have lots of it. And it's a really toxic mining industry for the ocean.
Can you Facebook me, Felicia Alongi Cowden? Are you a Facebook person?
Yeah, Alongi.
Alongi. I would like to have more communication with you. What is your name? If you want to say it, you don't have to.
Okay. What's your name again?
Felicia, Felicia, Alongi, Cowden. It's good for all of our islands to be connected.
And for anybody on Facebook, check out the Kauai Soapbox Facebook page. I posted about a 15-minute video talking about this whole subject, and it has a lot of the facts. So definitely check out the video on the Kauai Soapbox page.
Okay. Well,
I still didn't get.
Okay. What is your name?
Am I on the air?
You don't need to go.
You don't need to go. Let me give you my phone number. Call me later. 652-4363.
4363.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, I want to thank everybody. It's time for Jazz with John. We're going to hear from some of our underwriters. We so appreciate our sponsors that help us keep Kauai Radio on the air for exactly purposes like this.